Back at the FloraBama as we talk Alabama and South Florida football. Really more about Alabama than South Florida. That's a 2:30 kickoff, Raymond James Stadium. Raymond James Stadium, a guy where Red Leonard spent a lot of time with the Crimson Tide as he rolls by here. You never know who you're going to run into at the FloraBama. And it is great to have Chris Bryan on, host of the Morning Report, WPNN Radio, Pensacola. Of course, our show on Fox Sports Radio in Pensacola. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, it's kind of a unique atmosphere because usually I'm on the other side listening to you on my app. The app is the greatest thing since sliced cheese. And I encourage all of our listeners, hey, if you can't pick it up on 103.7, pop over to the app. WPNN app, and you've got it right there. We've got Bama football in just a bit coming up today, so that should be quite a game. I know the folks in South Florida, or we should say Central Florida, USF folks, are kind of happy they're not having the conditions that the FSU folks are having up in Boston this morning because they're playing BC, kickoff at 11 o'clock up there. And as we speak, they've got a pretty nasty storm coming on shore with tropical storm winds 30 to 50 miles per hour.
Yeah, we know all about that down here on the coast, right?
Too much.
Hurricane Ivan actually, 2004, wiped out this bar.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when they rebuilt this place, the FloraBama, they rebuilt it so that if a hurricane comes, like when Sally came, they pull all the windows and everything out, and they just say, okay, well, you can have the whole bottom floor, and then everybody comes in and scoops up all the sand, and they roll again.
Yeah, they got to push the first floor is a push floor, and it's smart because most people on the islands now, the key here over on Santa Rosa Island on the Pensacola side, they design their homes like that now.
Right.
Because it's simply easier just to wash it out and start over from the bottom level than have to pick up the whole darn thing. Mick, I got to tell you what was funny, and I know you've seen this before, but I watched the closed feeds of Nick Saban after the games.
Yeah.
Boy, what a difference in the atmosphere this week compared to usual weeks. But did you look closely? And I thought this was really funny because I grew up watching Bear Bryant, in his Saturday afternoon Bama show.
Right.
He always had the two things he always had on set. He always had that golden flake potato chips and a Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
I noticed this season, if you look at the podium, Saban's got the Coca-Cola on the podium.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He used it as a crystal ball a couple weeks ago.
Gosh.
He said, hey, if this was a crystal ball. Chris, let me talk about you.
Yeah.
You've had this long, illustrious career in broadcasting. Kind of tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, it started, my uncle was the original voice of the Howdy Doody show in Los Angeles.
Wow.
And so that's how I got my break, was in Los Angeles on KMPC radio, which is now, it is the Fan.
Oh, yeah.
In Los Angeles, 710.
Yeah.
But so it kind of evolved from there, doing a lot of different things in like music radio, but then I started using my college experience and work there. And so I went into the news talk side of the equation.
Right.
But I got this big break. It was in Southern California in the late 80s. Had a guy named John Gardner. He was head of Fast Television, which is First Auto Sports Television up in Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, hey, this guy named Bill Daniels wants to meet you. He's in Denver. Can you go meet him? Well, we ended up launching and creating the Prime Sports Network, which is Fox Sports today.
Wow.
It's owned by Liberty Media.
Yeah.
John Malone and his crew from TCI in Denver. They put it all together, but we did that. We did Fox News operations, brought it all here. I really capitalized on the fact being with that sports network for years on how to negotiate contracts with professional teams for specific markets.
Right.
And that's a real key because not all markets are the same.
Right.
So we did this as a perfect example here in the Pensacola market. I came in what we called checkerboard of the market. We did some really deep research to find out, okay, who are the teams really liked here?
Yeah.
And how is it stacked? By the way, folks, there's no competition in terms of popularity. Alabama wins hands down.
Yeah,
it is
that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, well, that's the number
Bama
one
football
team.
on the panhandle. I mean, right? Tell me about that.
I grew up with a guy named Bonzel Cotton. We called him EB. Biggest Alabama fan you ever saw in your life. We would sit on a stoop, buy a big bushel of raw oysters, pop the oysters, and listen to Alabama football on radio.
Yeah. John Forney days.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, John Forney, great.
So we grew up in the old days. Real quick, my sister was at Alabama when Joe Namath was there.
Really?
And they used to hide him out because the bear wouldn't let him back in the A dorm because he would come in late from partying.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the girls would hide him in the girls' dorm. Namath spent an enormous amount of time in the girls' dorm at Alabama in those days. That had to be in the late 60s, probably.
Yeah,
late 60s.
And he was back to pick the Alabama game last week. The Tide lost to Texas, and pretty disappointing loss. I mean, and we're really – Jake Coker's coming up next, who won in 2015.
I'm a fan, first of all.
Yeah, he's awesome, and we're going to get into all this. But let me just – while we're at the FloraBama – You were telling me, before we went on about coming out here and watching, concerts and stuff.
Yeah,
and
the Jimmy Buffett environmental concert that it was a big free concert right out here outside where we're standing.
Right.
20,000, 25,000 people were out here. And what a concert that was, because all the funds were to protect our beaches.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. Is protecting the beaches. I come from an environmental background.
Yeah.
I taught a lot of environmental science in my day.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible what they're doing in a lot of our communities and a lot of our cities with their recycling programs. It's a shame because they're taking a big step backwards. Before I make a transition here, I do want to talk to you about Nick Saban for a real quick second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because what he really keyed in on this week, and I was listening to every single different day that he would share his wisdom, if you will. But boy, he was ticked at the false starts at that offensive line.
Yeah.
He really wasn't pleased.
I was surprised by that, Chris. I mean, I was surprised by the lack of discipline on the offensive line.
Yeah. It wasn't the caliber.
It's just not the Alabama way.
That's what I'm saying.
Normally, and that's one of the concerns to me. It's all over the place watching this team that is having so many problems just doing the basics.
Right. It's questionable at best, but I think we're going to right the ship this week.
Okay.
Well, I think the Texas game was a wake-up call, and I know that's really a cop-out, but I really do, because I know on the side over at LSU, when they got popped in their game against FSU, the coach came out and said, "You are a bunch of imposters."
Yeah.
Fired them up.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they had a big
and Nick Saban really doesn't do that. That's not his style to. I'm sure he's saying that in practice.
Right.
He took responsibility for it.
He did. He actually did.
And he also, I thought this was interesting. His Thursday press conference, or no, it was Wednesday press conference. He's like, somebody asked about. There's a lot of former players that are upset about the direction things are going, right? And they're calling out the other players and the team. And Nick Saban said, "Hey, you know what? That they're right to do that. We didn't get the job done." He's like, "In the real world, if you don't get the job done, you get fired.
Yeah,
you can't feed your family." And I thought that was a really good life lesson from Coach Saban.
I think Coach Saban's going through some adversities this year that he hasn't faced in quite a while.
Right.
And you were talking in your monologue opening here about Nick Saban. Remember, he was the coach over at LSU for a while.
Right.
They got a national championship under their belt. Thanks to Nick Saban. Yeah,
and it was a big loss that they suffered at the beginning of the year to Florida.
But you know what? When that all transpired, of course, he left the Baton Rouge area and he went down to Miami and did that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't stay very long.
No,
and he
lost college.
I think he lost the trust of a lot of fans in terms of staying in one place, and he did. And he picked Alabama, luckily so, because he's one of the greatest coaches that ever went through Alabama.
Let me ask you this. I got to tell you, I'm excited to hear Chris Stewart on the call today.
Me too.
Chris is we've talked a lot about Eli Gold, who's been coming back from some health issues.
Right.
And I'm really excited about Chris is doing the road games and Eli's doing the home games. Now, I've never heard of this before, but you know what? That's what's going on.
It works. And Chris Stewart, I got a chance to meet him at the Alabama meeting last year. Not this year, but last year. And was he here? Yeah, he was here this year.
I was with you guys.
That's right. But absolutely, Chris Stewart's a pro. He's good. And he fills Eli's shoes, not replaces Eli's shoes, but fills Eli's shoes extremely well.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And it's, it'll be good to have him back on the call. He did a fantastic job last year. It's hard to beat Father Time, and Alabama's lucky to have Chris Stewart because, he's He's in his prime right now.
Oh, he really is, and I was so surprised. Well, maybe that's a bad word. I was pleased when Eli called that game. It sounded amazing. He was right there in the saddle, and he just was rocking,
Yeah, like old times again.
Yeah,
huh?
it really was.
Best tailgate you ever went to?
Oh, I think it probably had to be, and I'll tell you the funny story. We always go back home to Louisiana, and there's a place up in Gramercy, Louisiana. And on Christmas Eve, it's called the Burning of the Bonfires. And what they do on the levees, and they start building these things in June.
Really?
And the structures are house-sized structures.
Yeah.
And at 7 o'clock exactly in Gramercy, they start torching the bonfires.
Really?
And they go back towards New Orleans. And it's a great tradition because as tradition holds with the burning of the bonfires, it was a way for Santa to find his way into New Orleans.
Of course. I mean, of course. Santa Claus needs to find his way there. That's a pretty good party.
LSU, here's a little secret. If you ever want to crash an LSU great party, go to the reserve water tank. It's right next to Gramercy Reserve.
Right.
And that whole street is blocked off by like LSU food. And I'm telling you, the food is absolutely amazing.
Great cooks. I love going down to Louisiana and eating some of the great stuff. All right, look, anything else you noticed in the football game last week?
Well, I inconsistencies. And I think that's what drives Saban absolutely bonkers. Just the inconsistent play, not being ready for the looks. And I just think he's dealing with a lot of adversity this season that he has not seen in a while.
No doubt about it. And for all of you guys that are watching on YouTube, on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel, Bob and Iceman from Central Florida, roll tide, everybody, as you hang out with us on radio across the state of Alabama and Pensacola. Great to have all of you guys here as well, talking football. All right, Chris, final thoughts. Give me how can people find you and listen to your show, which comes on every morning? I love the show, by the way.
Thank you. First of all, we've been doing Alabama sports. Let me kind of use that as an operative word here. Sports, not just the football program, but you're going to hear some basketball. This year, we're going to be introducing some of the ladies' sports. So it's what I would say, if you're an Alabama fan, we have every piece of Alabama product out there on the radio station. It starts off with our great friend, Paul Chestnut. What a pro, this guy.
Yeah, great. Fantastic
Paul
sports
is
guy.
my old friend, but he absolutely does the Sports Roundtable show at 11 o'clock in the morning. He kind of sets it all up.
Yeah.
He brings in the Alabama crew for the local input within that show. We are on the app. You can listen to us worldwide. Just go to the WPNN app, and you'll find us there. Also, 103.7 FM and 1450 is on the FM. On the other side, this is 790 AM on our side. We have two stations.
Yeah.
And we've split the stations. So on our station at WPNN, we're responsible for Alabama.
Yeah.
Everything Alabama.
No doubt.
And so that's what I pride myself on. And so glad season's here. I was going through withdrawals.
Oh, hey, shout out to Scott Schroeder, Zach, of course, legendary dad, Papa Don Schroeder.
Yeah.
And then a station that I think is fantastic. I've really loved getting to know all of you guys, and you're coming back when I'm coming back. Can you do that?
Absolutely.
All right. Chris Bryan from WPNN in Pensacola.